Rain hammered the tin roof like 1,000 impatient fingers, and Mira tightened her worn shawl around her shoulders. The night was cold, colder than any she remembered, and the wind breathed through the broken window beside her bed. She lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling, counting the seconds between thunder and lightning, but sleep refused to come. Tomorrow would change everything, if she succeeded or if she failed. Her grandmother's words echoed through her memory, soft yet unshakable. "Child, the path worth walking will never be easy. It's supposed to be hard." At the time, Mira had rolled her eyes. Hard was an understatement. But now, on the eve of her final trial, those words felt like both a warning and a promise. She sat up, pushing aside the thin blanket. The lantern on her bedside table had nearly burned out, leaving only a faint golden glow. She lifted it by the handle and stepped toward the door. The wooden floor groaned under her feet. Tonight, she couldn't rest. She needed to think. She needed to breathe. She needed to be sure. The village was silent when Mira stepped outside. Everyone else was asleep, including the other apprentices who had trained for the trials their entire lives. Mira, however, had not. She came to this path late, not chosen, but forced. She walked to the hill overlooking the valley. From here, she could see the river slicing through the land, the moonlight shimmering across its surface. The sky, despite the storm, was a deep cobalt blue. Her heart thudded in her chest. "Are you going to run away again?" Mira stiffened. She didn't need to turn to know the voice belonged to Jalen. He stepped out from behind a tree, his hood pulled low, a stray lock of dark hair on his forehead. His gray eyes were full of that familiar mixture of challenge and concern. "I'm not running," Mira murmured. "You ran yesterday, and the day before." He smirked, poking the ground with a stick. "I wouldn't be surprised if you ran during the trial, too." She glared at him. "I don't run during things that matter." "Really?" Jalen stepped closer. "Then what are you doing out here? It's nearly dawn." "I'm thinking about running." She crossed her arms. "About surviving." Jalen's expression softened. "Mira, you're strong. Stronger than most people give you credit for. Strong doesn't matter if I fail tomorrow." "It does," he said quietly. "And you won't fail." But Mira wasn't convinced. Jalen sat beside her on the grass. "You know, when my brother took the trial 5 years ago, he said something I'll never forget." She raised an eyebrow. "What?" "He told me, victory isn't proof of courage. Courage is when you fight even when you know you might lose." Mira scoffed. "Easy to say for someone who won." "Actually," Jalen said softly, "he failed." She blinked. "He did." Jalen nodded. "He never became a guardian. He lives on the far side of the village now, making arrows for hunters. But he's one of the happiest people I know." Mira looked down at her hands. "I don't want to fail, Jalen. I know. I don't want to be weak. You're not. I don't want to disappoint." "You won't," he said firmly. "But you will if you don't even try." The wind howled again, scattering dried leaves across the ground. Mira inhaled deeply and closed her eyes. Try. That was all she could do. "Come," Jalen said, standing and reaching out his hand. "Let's go back. You'll need rest." She hesitated, then took his hand. Together, they walked back toward the village, the day of the trial. The next morning, the sun rose reluctantly. Fog curled around the village, and the air was thick with anticipation. Apprentices gathered in the courtyard, each wearing a simple gray cloak and carrying nothing but a dagger, the only tool permitted inside the trial grounds. Mira ran her thumb along the dagger's hilt, her stomach twisting. Master Raiden, the guardian commander, stood at the front, his hawk-like eyes scanning the group. "The trial of endurance," he began, "is not a test of strength alone. It challenges your mind, your heart, and your will. Many of you will stumble. Some of you may even turn back." Mira swallowed. "Only those who walk forward despite fear will succeed." His gaze landed on her briefly. She shifted uneasily. "When you enter the forest," he continued, "you will face 3 challenges, each tailored to your deepest weaknesses. Do not fear the illusions. They cannot kill you unless you allow your fear to consume you." Jalen nudged Mira's elbow. "Hey, you're breathing too fast." She didn't notice until he pointed it out. "Relax," he whispered. "You've trained for this." She gave a small nod. Master Raiden raised his arm. "Begin." A horn sounded. The gates opened, and the forest swallowed them whole. The first challenges, fear. The moment Mira stepped inside, the air shifted, the sunlight dimmed, the trees grew denser, taller, darker. She felt the weight of the trial settle on her shoulders. Suddenly, the path split into 3. The other apprentices scattered, each choosing a different trail. Mira hesitated only a second before taking the one in the middle. Her footsteps crunched softly on the forest floor. Minutes passed, then hours, or maybe it just felt that way. As she walked, the silence pressing in on her sharpened into something else, something familiar and suffocating. A voice echoed through the trees. "Mira!" Her blood ran cold. "No, Mira, Come here. It was her mother's voice, but her mother had died 10 years ago. Mira froze. The voice called again, closer this time. Mira, why won't you look at me? Something moved in the shadows. A figure stepped into view, a woman with long black hair, wearing the same dress her mother had worn the day she fell ill. Her eyes glistened. Mira, why did you leave me? Why didn't you save me? Mira's breathing hitched. You're not real. The apparition tilted its head. Aren't I? You still hear me in your nightmares. You still blame yourself. Mira clenched her fists. She knew this was a test. She knew this wasn't her mother. Yet her legs trembled. Come with me, the illusion whispered. You don't belong here. You're not strong enough for this place. Come back home. Mira shut her eyes. No, the forest rustled angrily. You are weak, Mira. You always have been. Her pulse raced. You failed me. Something inside her snapped. No, she shouted. I didn't fail you. You died. That wasn't my fault. I was a child. The illusion flickered, its form unraveling like smoke. You can't haunt me anymore, Mira whispered. The shadow dissolved, and the forest brightened. She had passed the first challenge, but two more remained. The second challenge, truth. After walking for what felt like another hour, Mira reached a clearing where the trees arched overhead like a natural cathedral. A stone pedestal stood at the center, holding a mirror. Her reflection stared back at her. Pale face, tired eyes, messy braid. She approached cautiously. The air hummed. Suddenly the mirror rippled, and her reflection stepped out of it. Mira stumbled back, gripping her dagger. The other Mira smirked. So this is who you want to be? A guardian? Mira didn't respond. You? The reflection continued, circling her. The girl who doubts herself every step of the way? The girl who thinks she'll disappoint everyone she cares about? Mira tightened her jaw. She hated how accurate the words were. You train, the reflection said, but you never truly believe in yourself. You dream, but you always think someone else deserves success more than you do. Stop, Mira muttered. You pretend to be strong, Mira. The reflection leaned close. But you're terrified of trying, because if you try, it grinned viciously. You might discover you're not good enough. Mira stepped back. Her heart thundered in her chest. Why do you hate yourself so much? The reflection asked, now quieter but sharper. Why do you think you're unworthy? Mira's throat tightened. For a moment she didn't know what to say. Then she whispered, because I've failed before. The reflection raised an eyebrow. So what? Everyone fails. But I fail a lot, Mira said, voice shaking. And I don't want people to think I'm useless. Her reflection softened for the first time. So everything you do, it said, you do to prove you're not worthless. Mira nodded slowly. The reflection sighed. That's not strength, Mira. I know. Strength, the reflection said, is knowing your flaws and still choosing to move forward. Mira raised her eyes. Then I'll move forward. The reflection smiled. Good, it said, and then shattered into 1,000 pieces. The mirror cracked. A path opened behind it. With a deep breath, Mira walked forward. The final challenge, sacrifice. By the time Mira reached the heart of the forest, her legs ached and her throat was dry. The trees parted to reveal a stone bridge stretching across a canyon. At the center of the bridge stood Jalen. Mira blinked. Jalen? She called. He didn't respond. She walked closer. His eyes were empty, glassy, unfocused. A thin rope was tied around his wrists, binding him to a stone pillar. Suddenly, Master Raiden's voice boomed through the sky, not physically present, but projected through the trial. Your final challenge, Mirror of Arlen. Choose. Two paths appeared. One led across the bridge to Jalen. The other led upward to a raised platform, a beacon glowing at its center. Raiden's voice continued. To pass this trial, you must light the beacon. But if you choose that path, the illusion of your friend will fall into the canyon. Mira's stomach tightened. If you save him, you cannot reach the beacon in time. You will fail the trial. Mira's heart pounded painfully. Jalen, she shouted, running forward. He looked up weakly. Mira. His voice was faint, too faint to tell if he was real or illusion. Help me. Mira's eyes stung. This was cruel. They knew Jalen was the person she trusted most. She looked between him and the glowing beacon. Her chest ached. This wasn't a challenge of strength. This wasn't a challenge of bravery. This was a challenge of who she was. She whispered, Jalen, I can't lose you. He gave her a small, strained smile. It's okay. No, it wasn't. She sprinted toward him, dagger drawn. The ropes were tight, but she hacked at them furiously. Mira, he said, wincing, you'll fail. I don't care, she said through tears. I'm not leaving you. The last rope snapped. Jalen collapsed into her arms. The beacon behind her dimmed, then vanished. The canyon rumbled. The trial faded. Everything dissolved into white light. The trial's verdict. When the world reformed, Mira stood once again in the courtyard. Apprentices appeared around her, some trembling, some triumphant. Master Raiden tallied results on a scroll. Jalen stood a few feet away, unharmed and smiling proudly. loudly. Mira's hands shook. She failed. She knew it. Raiden called names of those who had passed. One by one, cheers erupted. Mira looked at the dirt beneath her feet. Then Mira of Arlen. Her head snapped up. Raiden's expression was unreadable. You pass. She stared at him in shock. But I didn't light the beacon. You chose compassion over ambition. Raiden said, you chose loyalty over victory. That is what makes a true guardian. Mira blinked rapidly, trying to absorb his words. Many can fight, he continued. Few can love so deeply they would sacrifice their own success for another. Jalen grinned at her, eyes shining. Told you. She felt tears prick her eyes again. Master Raiden stepped forward. Mira, he said gently, you believed failure made you weak, but it is your heart, your willingness to face hardship that makes you strong. Her grandmother's voice whispered again through her memory. It's supposed to be hard. Mira finally understood. Hard didn't mean impossible. Hard meant meaningful. Hard meant worth it. She lifted her chin, shoulders straightening. For the first time in her life, she believed she was enough. Epilogue. 6 months later, the village gathered by the riverbank where the Guardians prepared for their annual patrol of the neighboring lands. Mira stood among them now, not a frightened apprentice but a guardian in training, wearing the silver insignia of her rank. Jalen stood beside her, nudging her playfully. Nervous, of course, she said. A little. Good, he laughed. Means you care. Mira smiled. As they mounted their horses, Master Raiden rode to the front of the group. Guardians, he called. Move out. The group charged forward, wind whipping through Mira's hair. The forest loomed ahead, but this time she didn't fear it. She wasn't the same girl who once doubted every step she took. She knew now that strength wasn't perfection. Strength was choosing to try again. Strength was choosing the hard path.